The 2026 Minnesota Golf Show is swinging into the Minneapolis Convention Center February 13th through 15th, and we want your business on the green. With thousands of passionate golfers roaming the floor, this is your chance to get your brand in front of this quality demographic with a vendor booth or larger sponsorship. And this year's ambassador, NFL Hall of Famer and Viking legend John Randall. So yeah, it's kind of a big deal. Want in? Don't wait for your invitation to land in the fairway. Call Bernie Lauer at 651-632-6646 or email blaur@hbi.com before the best spots are gone.
Join me, John Randall, at the North American Banking Company Minnesota Golf Show, February 13th through the 15th. It's your chance to try out the newest clubs and equipment from the biggest names in golf. Improve your game with free lessons and clinics from PGA pros. And when you're done, relax at the 19th Hole Lounge with your favorite post-round beverage.
Tickets on sale now at mngolfshow.com. Save $3 with advanced purchase. Each ticket includes 14 free greens fee passes at area courses. Learn more at mngolfshow.com.
Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here I am, stuck in the middle with you, Jay Coles. How are you now?
I'm doing pretty well. So, has anything been happening lately, Kenny?
Wow.
Wow. Right? Is something happening in the Twin Cities? What's going on?
It's kind of a good time to start a podcast, isn't it?
Isn't it? That's what
The news is coming to us. Say, I promoted on Garage Logic towards the end of the show that we were going to have former U.S. Attorney Tom Heffelfinger on with us. And he's not here.
No,
and we're kind of worried because Tom Heffelfinger is very trustworthy and always says when he says he's going to be there, he's there.
I've interviewed him for many, many years, and I've never not been able. So, we'll find out. For some reason, Tom is not here today, but we've got the one and only secret agent man, David Schultz from Hamline University, constitutional law expert.
Yeah, thank you for joining us, David. Appreciate it.
David,
pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I was joking with Kenny going, wow, well, we just started this podcast around 3 months ago, and is there a better time because there's so much news happening? And again, Kenny and I talked yesterday, and he goes, I think we've got a show set for tomorrow. And I said, Kenny, we got 12 more hours till we do the show, or 14 more hours. It's probably going to change by 3 o'clock.
And it did.
And it did. And the latest thing to happen today that we wanted to get your take on, David, was Attorney General for Minnesota, Keith Ellison, suing in federal court, trying to get DHS to end the ICE operations. And we heard from the federal judge today. Can you update us and our listeners and our viewers what happened today with the federal judge and Minnesota's effort to kick ICE out of here?
Well, first off, I'll say the judge punted for now. And what I mean punted for now is the sense that when the Minnesota showed up, they filed a lawsuit probably no more than maybe 24, 36 hours ago or something like that, however long ago it was like that. And the feds apparently didn't show up in terms of being prepared at this point. And so what the judge said is, for now, we're not going to give you the temporary restraining order. We're going to schedule this, put it on the docket, give the federal government an opportunity to be able to respond, and then go from there. And that's probably the right answer. It probably is. And the reason why I say that is that for a judge to issue a temporary restraining order, what you have to show is that you're more likely than not to win on the merits of the case. That's kind of like a standard here. Okay. And given the fact that the feds didn't show up, didn't make their arguments, judge doesn't have a lot of information at this point. And judges are hesitant, especially in the middle of an operation like this, whether you like it or not, what ICE is doing. They're engaged in a major operation. I think judges are pretty loath to want to stick their nose into it and say, until we actually have a lot more information, we're not going to do anything. So no surprise there, just in terms of what happened.
So not a loss for Minnesota and the Attorney General. And if I read correctly, David, I think the judge is Menendez. Judge Menendez, I think, is the name of the judge. She said, come back on the 19th to the feds, which is next Monday. And then the state's got to respond by the 22nd. So just so might not be a temporary restraining order today, doesn't mean we might not get one next week. Is that possible? Or
it's a possibility, absolutely. No, it's entirely possible at that point because the judge has now put the feds on notice. Be here, be ready to argue. The judge could possibly do it for a restraining order. Now, remember, that would just be a temporary restraining order. It's not saying that the feds are right, the state's right. It would just be to say at this point that we're going to we're going to put a thing on hold. But again, generally you don't get those kind of orders unless the judge, and this is the legal standard, can conclude that, once we actually hear the whole case argued out on merits, I think you got a pretty good chance of winning at this point. So it's almost like a preliminary ruling, if I could call it that. That's in terms of what it is. But I want to add a little bit to this here in terms of the discussion, because if you look at Ellison's complaint that he filed, it was actually kind of interesting. He raises 3 arguments, of which I think there's one really good argument in there. Okay. So he first says that it's about an 80-page complaint, by the way. He first says that ICE coming in here and doing all the stuff they're doing is a violation of the Equal Protection Clause. They're targeting people on the basis of race. Not a bad argument. Saying that they're going after people based upon their race, and that's a violation of the Constitution. The second argument is they're picking on us politically because we're Democrats. Probably true, but not a good legal argument. The argument that I thought that was the most interesting was the one that says that it's interfering with our 10th Amendment rights as a state. It's a federalism argument. And let me explain what I think Ellison's trying to say, although I don't think he argued it or presented it as well as he could have in his brief. Basically, what I think he's trying to say here is that, listen, as a state, we've got some core responsibilities. We're out here protecting the health, safety, welfare of our people. And you as the federal government are coming in are making it impossible for us to be able to do that. Basically, my language, not theirs, you're mucking around in our business, making it hard for us to do our job. And what you're trying to do is to force us or compel us into submission. That's a pretty good argument. And the reason why it's a good argument is that the Supreme Court, U.S. Supreme Court, has consistently said that the 10th Amendment prevents the federal government, except in rare circumstances, prevents the federal government from forcing states to do things. The most famous example is when the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, became law. One of the things that Obamacare wanted to do was expand Medicaid coverage. Good idea, so more people are being covered. So what it said to the states is that if you expand Medicare coverage, we'll cover it. But if you don't expand the coverage, we're going to dock you. We're going to take away some of your federal funds. The Supreme Court said, you can't do that. That's coercive.
Got it.
Yeah.
So kind of a states' rights thing, right?
It's a states' rights thing.
Yeah.
Now, I lived in Texas for a few years. I always hate hearing the words states' rights because it conjures up some really bad images here too.
Right,
but it's essentially... Yeah, I mean, I'm serious. It does.
Yeah.
But this is a states' rights argument. Is that do we want the federal government basically, in my words, strong-arming states into doing a variety of things? And I think what Ellison could have argued even better is to say, look at not just at ICE. Look at the cutting off of all the different funds, et cetera, in the state. They're basically trying to what? I don't know. Compel the state into submission or something like that. I think that's not a bad argument to make there, and this U.S. Supreme Court might be sympathetic to it. So I was kidding with somebody and saying, I think the state wrote, again, remember I'm a professor, they wrote a B- or a B complaint. They could have written a better one at some point there, but it's not a bad argument to say that feds can't push the state around.
We'll see next week.
David, what about the supremacy clause that says in the Constitution that federal laws made pursuant are supreme laws over state laws?
No, you're absolutely correct. When I teach, I talk to my students, tell my students that we have to think about the supremacy clause and the 10th Amendment as an attention, that the feds generally win. Feds generally win. Now, do the feds have the right to come in and enforce immigration laws? They absolutely do. No question about it. They have the jurisdiction and authority to be able to do that. The question is, are they trying to compel or force the state to go along with them? Yeah. And that's what the court has to decide next week. Have the feds crossed that line over into compulsion? And that's what I'm saying. It's not a bad argument the state is making. I don't know if it's a winning argument.
Is it precedent setting?
It's not a bad argument to make. Pardon me?
Is it precedent setting if, in fact, Minnesota wins?
It would be precedent setting on this one. Now, again, remember the Supreme Court agreed with the states on the Obamacare one.
This
would be. So this would be unusual in terms of, let us say, for an immigration issue too. Now, we should also point out, by the way, is that the authority to regulate immigration is textually given to the federal government, textually given in the Constitution to the federal government. So I just mention that because the feds do have a lot of clauses of the Constitution on their side here, as does the state of Minnesota. So that's why, this is the job of judges to figure this out.
Yeah. Well, something, Kenny and I talked at length yesterday. Yeah. Something extraordinary happened yesterday with the U.S. Attorney's Office here in Minnesota, right, David? You're well aware of that.
Yeah.
Joe Thompson, who's no stranger to anybody lately, and 5 of his colleagues stepped up and said, we're done, we're out. We don't have any official word yet, but we've got some information from the New York Times that's been sourced.
And Jay, I want your opinion on that source because I asked you yesterday, I guess. We don't have any sources named, and Joe and the gang have not come forward to tell us why. Do we trust the New York Times as a source?
That's a really good question. Here's how I can best answer that. It is the New York Times. They have a pretty high standard. I've used sources that I don't name, but with something like this, I can tell you would have had to have 3. Right?
That was my next question. Thank you.
Yeah. You don't go with one on this. All 3 sources would have to be direct sources, right? With firsthand knowledge. Something to this level? Yeah. And do I think the New York Times, with its prowess, could have 3 really good sources at the Department of Justice? I do. I'm not so sure it came from the people who work here at the U.S. Attorney's Office in Minnesota, but it certainly could have come from Washington, D.C., where I would bet there are New York Times reporters pretty plugged in. So the New York Times is reporting, as Kenny pointed out, and it is important to note, they're anonymous sources, that the reason the 6, Joe Thompson and the other 5, left was a bit of a protest. And again, this is from the New York Times reporting this, that they were getting pressure from D.C., the Department of Justice in D.C., to investigate the wife of Renee Good. Renee Good was the one who was shot and killed by the ICE agent. Rebecca Good is her wife. And that's why the 6 left. Again, we can only speculate, but if the New York Times is accurate, that's quite a development. And this is a great area for David to jump into because he's been around a long time, constitutional law expert. David, have you seen anything quite like this happen? Well, certainly not here, but at any time in recent history. Have you ever seen anything like that?
Depends on what you define by recent history. When you and I were talking before, the closest that I can think of, and it's not quite a parallel, it's 1973. It's Watergate. Nixon is president, and he doesn't like the fact that the special prosecutor, Archibald Cox, is getting pretty darn close to him. So he calls who is it now? He calls the attorney general and tells the attorney general, fire Cox. And the attorney general says, I'm not firing Cox. I quit.
Was that guy Ellerson? What was his name?
Elliot Richardson.
Yep.
Elliot Richardson was the AG. Then he turns to William Ruckelshaus, who's the assistant AG, and says, "Fire him." And Ruckelshaus says, "I'm not going to do that either."
So we're back to the water. So David, you're telling me we're back to Watergate? It sounds like echoes of Watergate.
Yes. Okay.
All right. Great.
So let's do just a little bit of speculation here. Okay.
Yeah.
So first off, the reason probably why Thompson et al. Are not speaking or saying anything at this point, they're probably bound by attorney-client privilege at this point. Let's say for the sake of argument.
Their client being the U.S. attorney, right? Being the government.
Exactly. The federal government at this point. And they're being told by their client or being told by their superiors, go investigate this person there. And they've said they're not going to do it here. They're more or less, they're bound not to go public and say anything. Now, there's going to be some exceptions, but for the most part, I can see why they're doing it. Okay. But the other thing that is interesting here, again, assuming the New York Times is accurate, assuming, that some order was barked down to say, go investigate this other person here, they may have been required, had an affirmative duty actually to quit the case or resign.
What's an affirmative duty?
Affirmative duty to do so. For over 25 years, taught in law school, teach a class called professional responsibility, which is the legal ethics class that law students have to take. So it's kind of an area I know a lot about here. And attorneys in general, but especially prosecutors, are under really tight rules regarding not abusing the legal system, not bringing about malicious prosecution. They're not supposed to do anything that they believe would be a violation of the law. Now, again, we don't know what all was going on here.
Right.
But if, for example, they were being told, go out there, do this investigation, charger, whatever like that. They may have reached a conclusion and said, we can't do this. It's a violation of our duties as an attorney. Maybe they protested. The Justice Department said, still do it. And they said, we have no choice. We've got to step down. I will tell you a story here, is that I used to investigate, do part of the investigations for lawyers behaving badly.
Okay.
Every attorney I've ever talked to says they get a letter that comes from the Office of Professional Responsibility. The address is on there, and it's stamped in red, confidential. Every attorney I've ever talked to says, "Oh my God, what's going to happen to my law license?" And so the threat of having somebody report you and possibly being investigated by the Office of Professional Responsibility, the board that disciplines lawyers, and maybe losing your license is so great. That for 99 out of 100 lawyers, that's enough to say, that's it, I'm done, folks. So again, we're just doing a lot of speculation here, but this is the scenario that I'm guessing that's happening.
But something significant to have 6 of them at once, right?
Yes.
And
yes,
that's almost 10% of their entire staff. I'm told they've got something like 80 over there. Is that about right? 80 attorneys? So almost 80. But I mean, that's, I guess, not 10%, but close. So something happened. Right. We may not know for a while for sure, but something bad happened in the U.S. Attorney's office here in Minnesota. Of course, that's where the whole world seems to be happening right now.
Let me throw one at you, and this comes out of left field. Do you think Joe and his team were happy or upset when they found out that we now have 9 or more federal government bodies investigating the fraud,
right,
where they were initially the big dog? They were doing all the legwork, all the hard work. They were bringing people to court. And now we have up to 9 different government bodies investigating this. Could that at all have an effect on Joe and team?
Possibly. It could cut 2 different ways. One, it could cut in the sense of what, did he feel like somebody else was cutting their grass, kind of like encroaching on him? That's one theory. Again, we don't know. Other theory is, there's a lot of work we got coming down the line here, folks.
Yeah.
In terms of prosecution. I mean, at this point, I don't know about you. It seems to be a buyer's market for fraud in Minnesota at this point.
We've heard fraud tourism, and now we got buyer's market for fraud.
I got to write that one down, David. Do I have to attribute that to you? Can I steal it?
We steal everything, David.
Yeah.
Buyer's market for fraud. There you go.
But I can't imagine though. Him and 6 other attorneys would have said, "God, we don't want to work that hard." I can't envision that.
It's something else.
Now, the other thing I was going to point out here is that there's still a lot of people in that office there, but remember, not everybody's an expert, in sort of certain areas of law, and so the 6 that are involved here seem to be may have a specialization in the criminal matters. They may have specialization in fraud, and there's probably other attorneys in the office there, but that may not be their expertise. And so you just can't sort of say, let's just move a bunch of attorneys from one part over to somewhere else.
And I got to interrupt you right there because that's that is significant. What you're saying right there is, to me, the most significant thing here. Well, it's significant that 6 walked out all at once, but yes. Joe Thompson, I got to know Joe. I've known Joe for 10 years. He was the lead white collar guy, fraud guy, right?
Yeah.
And then he became the face of fraud and prosecutions here in Minnesota ever since everything blew up with the fraud, right?
Yeah.
So Joe is, and he served under both a Democrat and a Republican, highly, highly respected. This is his area of expertise. And so my next question to you, David, is how do they continue these fraud prosecutions now? What happens to those? That, with the autism centers, possibly daycare centers, feeding our future's not done. Tom Heffelfinger was interviewed yesterday by Channel 5. I helped get Tom lined up for Channel 5 yesterday. He said they can't. They can't continue the fraud investigations until they fill those spots, and you can't fill them overnight. What's your take on that?
Yeah, this is if Heffelfinger is absolutely correct here, is that people who white collar crime in terms of prosecution, that's a specialized field.
Yep.
And not only a specialized field, but how these prosecutions have been going on, 2-3 years, I think at this point.
2.
Think about the amount of expertise and knowledge these people have built up just in terms of the facts, the cases and stuff like that. This is, I don't know. I'm trying to think of an analogy here. It's like, Schultz, go out there and work on a car that you've never worked on in your life, or go out and do brains. I'm trying to get out something like that. Go out and do brain surgery. I don't know anything about it. Well, you'll figure it out eventually. Well, yeah, maybe I will, but it's going to take me a long time to do it. And it's the same thing here. Is that what are we going to call it? The institutional knowledge or memory? The institutional memory, I guess we're going to call it there, or maybe prosecutorial memory of what's going on in these cases is gone. So I don't want to quite say they're back to square one, but they're pretty close to square one at this point.
At least for the short term.
Yeah.
You can't get 6 attorneys to jump in.
Yeah. So on the other side.
David, we have $9 billion worth of fraud out there, quite possibly.
Yeah.
And no attorneys to prosecute it.
Oh, we've got 9 other government bodies.
You're right. There are 9 other government bodies.
Yeah.
Definition of a mess. Yeah. This is a mess.
Yeah.
It is a mess, especially when you also throw in the fact that I can say this comfortably. The state of Minnesota can't investigate itself. Period.
Right. No, it can't.
It's proven it can't. The Attorney General, which should be doing this. Remember, the Attorney General represents the state of Minnesota, so it's got a conflict of interest. It's huge, and so there is nothing out there. And even if we were to say at this point, okay, let's contract out, let's go get some private law firm that specializes in short term. Again, that's not easy. They're going to have to ramp up the speed. Get up to speed on this stuff.
It's going to delay it for sure. It's going to set it back. Yeah. The other questions, Kenny and I have talked about this a lot, and Kenny has a lot of good questions. I have a lot of good questions. At least we think we do. If I want to shift gears just a little bit to, there's been constitutional questions, legal challenges to how ICE is operating. And I can tell you, David, Kenny, and I talked about, we're watching videos where they're literally, not even an exaggeration, it's on tape. KSTP ran it a couple nights ago, knocking down the door of a guy, a Liberian immigrant, somewhere in the Twin Cities, just batter ramming the door, right? Just knocking the door down to get in to arrest the guy. people getting tackled outside Target or inside Target. It's
You should make something clear, Jay. They knocked that door down without a signed search warrant.
They did not have a signed judicial. You're right. They gave him a piece of paper. Kenny, thank you. You're right. And that piece of paper, David, only had the signature of an ICE agent, not a judge.
That's right.
I, again, have been around a long time. Kenny's been around a long time. He's got that nice Santa beard. You and I have been around. I've never encountered anything like this in 30, 40 plus years of reporting, to be quite honest with you, to this level, day in and day out. And what are your thoughts? Have you ever seen anything quite like it? And how can that be allowed to continue? Where do we go from here, I guess is my next question, because it doesn't appear to be normal procedure or legal procedure. Am I right or way off on that?
No, I agree. I agree with you 100% on this one. And I want to sort of back up for a second and say here, for everybody, whether they consider themselves liberal or conservative or something like that, or wherever they stand on the political spectrum here, I mean, the whole purpose of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights is to what? To keep the government out of our face. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't care what the cause is. I don't want the government knocking on my door and battering it down. I mean, show me the warrant, et cetera, like that. And so this ought to be something that unites everybody to say that, should the feds be able to go out there and arrest people who are not legal in the United States? Yeah. But guess what? Do it the right way. Someone asked me yesterday the question of, what's the best way for the government to perform its duties? And I say the way to perform its duties is respect individual rights. I mean, the other way I phrase it at some point, didn't we fight a revolutionary war 250 years ago?
Yeah.
So that the government couldn't stomp all over our lives or something like that?
Yeah.
I mean, as one of my teachers would say, he would raise his hand and say, "What kind of government do we live in?" or something like that.
Well, and then we had the Civil War, which was states' rights. With slavery and states' rights combined. And Kenny had a great analogy yesterday. Kenny, you remember what you said to me? Kenny said he feels like he's sitting in the middle of a street.
Oh, yeah. The neighbor to the right of me is at war with the neighbor to the left of me, and I'm sitting here in the middle looking both ways, and they're telling me to pick a side, and I'm picking neither one. Yeah.
Well,
that's what it feels
Ken,
like.
you may have the same reaction I do, right? Because I was going to say, you may have the same reaction I do right now. One of the things I'd like to see happen, it's not happening, coming from the federal government, from the state government. Come on, folks. Let's figure out how to de-escalate this whole thing.
Okay. Speaking of that,
everybody's getting hot and bothered. They're throwing language around. I mean, okay. I can understand Mayor Fry being mad, basically saying "get the F out of our city." Certainly doesn't help. No. Trump's language. What did he tweet yesterday? Something about
none of it helps.
The day of what? The day of what is it?
Day of reckoning
is coming from Minnesota.
Day of reckoning.
This is not good for trying to figure out a peaceful way to resolve things.
Or is it? The reason I say that is because we've been talking repeatedly on Garage Logic about the optics. That's one of these new buzzwords, optics, and how bad this looks for the feds and for ICE. Okay.
Yeah. It does.
What if they think it looks good? What if they're achieving exactly what they want? And I realize this is an opinion question, but what is your opinion?
Yeah. Well, if their goal is to try to intimidate people, scare people, et cetera, then it may be very effective in terms of because people are scared. People are worried at this point. I mean, you folks are probably like me. Remember George Floyd happened after George Floyd. I think all of us are worried that if somebody looks at somebody the wrong way, we're going to have a bunch of riots in the streets again or something like that. But you're right. If they're thinking but if they're thinking that this is going to win them favor with swing voters or independent voters come November, I doubt it. I mean, go back to the story again before here. If it's true that, Thompson et al. Are resigning because they're being told to investigate the widow, how do you think that plays with the average suburban female voter in Edina and Wayzata?
Mm-hmm.
That's not going to work.
Not going to work, folks.
This has been great, David. Thanks for taking such a long time to chat with us about it.
No problem.
I don't know where it goes from here. All I know is Kenny and I'll just each day wake up and talk to each other and go, what are we covering today? What are we going to talk about today?
If we get rich off this phrase, it's a buyer's market for state.
Buyer's market for fraud.
For fraud. We'll thank you, but you're not getting a cut of it.
No, you're not getting any of our money, David.
All right. All right. So I'll deal. I'll get a cut of that. You get a cut of how much I get when I talk to KSTP.
Oh, the same amount. Half of nothing is nothing.
Hubbard discount, nothing. Okay, we got it.
Thanks, David.
Thanks.
Okay.
Really appreciate it.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. Yeah.
Yep.
We'll be right back.
At Arizona State University, we made online education better, smarter, and more personalized so you can go further in your aspiring field.
I decided to pursue medicine once I realized that ASU did have the online program for biological sciences. You're still required to learn the same curriculum. You're still being tested on the same content that anyone would be tested on in person. The comprehensiveness of the program prepared me so well for medical school.
Explore over 350-plus programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
Back.
Yep.
Jay, David Feinwachs, let me do the introductions because you are running full throttle right now. I mean, you are full throttle down a hill with the wind at your back. So let me just calm the room and give the listeners some background on our next guest, Dave Feinwachs, the lead attorney for the Minnesota Hospital Association for 30 years. David, you know Medicaid rules and laws inside and out. The feds threatening to cut $2 billion off Medicaid funds to Minnesota could affect more than 1 million Minnesotans who rely on Medicaid services. Jay, go!
You know what I love about Kenny? He knows me really, really well. I didn't think I was that hyped up.
Oh, my God, Jay.
But
He's the loss buffer.
I'm trying to stay calm. Well, there's a lot of big news happening, and it's really important, incredible stuff.
We have two lawsuits now against the feds.
Two
right?
lawsuits against the. Well, now that's the feds suing Minnesota. So we have the state suing the feds. Now we got the feds suing Minnesota.
Yeah,
it's crazy. Well, we're lucky to have David join us today. Just David, explain the significance. And this just appeared in the Federal Registry today, correct?
Correct.
So essentially, the Centers for Medicaid and Medicare Services, which is run by Dr. Oz, said, "Hey, we don't think you're running Medicaid very well, and since there's so much fraud, we're going to withhold $2 billion." I mean, is that sum it up? It's pretty significant, is it not?
It's very significant because A, it hasn't happened before, and B, the Medicaid program is funded by the feds and the state of Minnesota.
Yeah.
So what we got here is the feds saying, we think there's something seriously wrong in Minnesota, and we're going to withhold our half because it looks to us like you're not even trying to prevent fraud.
And can they? So there's got to be some kind of a process. They just can't come in and. So now what happens next?
Well, now what happens next is, and Walsh already today took the step. They publish this notice in a Federal Register that says, we're going to start withholding money. You got 10 days to ask for a hearing.
Okay.
Walsh has already asked for the hearing immediately. I mean, he's got to.
I was going to say, there's no other option.
There's no other option. There will be a hearing held in Chicago in a reasonably short amount of time. And the federal government has said, we've looked at this, and you're deficient in every way you can be deficient. It's not a close question.
So it's tied to the fraud that
It's tied to the fact our legislative auditor wrote a letter to the Star Tribune newspaper, and he said, I've known this all along. I warned him. I told him that I saw this, and, of course, he didn't tell anybody else, but he's writing letters now.
That was the singer.
The reason that I mention it is one of those famous reports where he said, "I've known this all along," is a footnote in this filing in the Federal Register. You can see in the thing that was published, there's a footnote that says, according to the legislative auditor of the state of Minnesota, this stuff is really messed up. And he said he knew about it, so you must have known about it. So why didn't anybody do anything about it?
And so this is clearly connected to all of the fraud that we've been reporting on in recent months and years. You and I have reported on Medicaid problems going back over 13 years. But this is more of the recent stuff that's exploded, correct? It's all tied together.
This is more of the recent stuff because what's happening and what happened with the U.S. Attorney is these fraud numbers are increasing exponentially.
Yeah.
You wake up one day and somebody goes, holy smokes, they stole some money. It could be as much as $1 billion.
Right.
3 weeks later, $1 billion looks like the bargain room.
Yeah.
Now we're up to multi-billion dollars, and most people glaze over because these are boxcar numbers. When you get that many zeros in front of the first number, you have a hard time wrapping your head around what's going on.
It's huge.
It's beyond huge. It's unbelievable.
And Kenny and I were talking. If they cut off $2 billion to Minnesota, there's more than 1 million people. That's elderly people, disabled people. What happens to the million people?
I would call them innocent bystanders.
100%, Ken, right?
Yeah,
So what happens to them, David?
Okay,
what happens?
Well, let's dissect it a little bit because first of all, they're not cutting off all the money.
Okay.
Believe it or not, in terms of how much federal money Minnesota gets, this $2 billion is basically a cup of water out of the ocean. Okay,
but if it's $2 billion for us, wouldn't that be like at the end? How would we be able to administer any services?
Yeah, it seems significant.
Yeah.
Well, no, the number seems significant when taken in a vacuum, but you have to look at the services that they're cutting. These run across 14 what they call 1115 waivered programs.
Yeah.
Now, anytime you see an 1115 waiver, and everything the state does. These are programs that were set up as an experiment. So I want you to think about that. Like the housing stabilization services, you know. What if we paid people to go out and ask homeless people if they wouldn't rather be living indoors? You know?
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's do that. Suddenly, everybody's doing it and everybody's submitting bills and, what's the point? It looks like the program was set up just to bleed federal money.
Well, Joe Thompson, in an interview that I did with him, said he believed 90% or greater of housing stabilization was fraud.
Absolutely. And I agree with him completely. I've talked to Mr. Thompson in the past. He's a wonderful public servant, a great lawyer. He absolutely looked at those things, and he said it looks like many of these programs were designed to be defrauded. And,
wow.
And in fact, they
Think
were.
about that for a minute.
Now, and let's go back to where we came in a few minutes ago. If you set one of these things up, and for the money, you put in some money, and the federal government, at the very minimum, matches it dollar for dollar, or in some cases, pays for the whole thing, you could set up programs that were designed to be defrauded. Because what do you care? It's free money. Now, are there some people who are in need of stuff?
By free money, you mean free to the state.
Free to the state.
To the state, yeah.
Okay? It's an open checkbook. We don't have the most basic of financial safeguards. These programs are operated in a Wild West manner, and the amount of money that's being lost is insane.
Wow.
Now keep in mind that every dollar of money lost is a dollar that could be used to help somebody in need. So when the state agencies or the governor goes, your actions are hurting poor people, the federal government actions are designed to make sure poor people actually get the benefit of the money that the taxpayers are paying. Because otherwise, it's going into Lamborghinis and, ranches in Kenya and who knows where else, but it's sure not going to help the people who need help.
So if they take the $2 billion, how do the million people that rely on it get it here, David? How are they going to get it? Or they just lose the services?
No, but keep in mind the state
still does
the state puts in $2 billion too, in theory, right?
Yeah.
So the state would have to do this, but the notice in today's Federal Register requires that the Walz administration show up at this hearing and go, look, here's what we've done to stop this fraud. Now, and they sent this to CMS, and it's important to take notice of the fact that CMS says, yeah, we looked at that, and with your permission, that's some babbling bullshit. here's what the Walz administration says they're going to do. The first thing they said is, we're going to hire an outside company who's a data analytics company to audit. Data companies don't audit. You have to hire auditors to audit. So that one's a little wacky from the start.
Okay.
Number 2, I know a guy. Everybody's favorite line. I know a guy. And this guy's a good guy. I'm going to put him in charge of this stuff. There's no real plan, but, everybody likes this guy. It's all going to work out fine. Okay? That's number 2. And my favorite...
Is that the appointment of O'Malley?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think he's a fine gentleman.
Right.
I
it's
think
nothing
he's
against him.
Okay,
yeah.
but the announcement that this guy is going to fix it all without a detailed plan is a little light on detail.
Mm-hmm.
And the third thing, which is my personal favorite, Walz issued an executive order decreeing that fraud would stop. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
You can find it if you just Google Walz, executive order fraud. It comes right up. So I looked at this and I kind of chuckled to myself and I thought, well, this is interesting. All fraud will cease. Signed the great and powerful Walz. All right? Well, today, the Federal Register published a thing that was signed the great and powerful Oz. Okay? And so now the question is...
It is Dr. Oz who's running CMS.
Yeah, who are you going to bet on?
Kenny, this is... Is this...
This is the best interview I've ever been a part of, Jay. This is top number one.
I mean, the guy in charge of cutting off $2 billion is Dr. Oz.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
okay.
And Dr. Oz has forthright.
I hate to interrupt you. Renee Cooper, my colleague downstairs. Kenny, she got a one-on-one with Oz this morning.
Great.
I should text her and tell her to get up here. I'd like to know what Oz told her today. You know what I'm saying? Did you see any news this afternoon?
I did not see any news.
What did he say today? Do you have any idea?
I don't know what he said today.
Yeah.
But I can tell you what this says. It says there's going to be a hearing.
Right.
And
do they have a date on the hearing yet, or
no? He has to ask it, then they'll schedule it.
Okay.
But it'll be scheduled within X number of days, like within 30 days. They've appointed a hearing examiner.
So does Walz have to go to that?
Well, somebody
or would it be DHS?
Somebody has to go to it.
Yeah.
Somebody has to go to it and come up with a plan. And again, I'm going to refer back to you guys because while we're sitting here making jokes about this, you're sort of my favorite station. I'll admit it. A little over a week ago, you guys had a thing on the news where somebody from the legislative auditor was sitting in front of a legislative committee saying, I've never seen anything like this in my 27 years. We were trying to do an audit at DHS. And they made up a bunch of documents and backdated them. And we've always suspected for years this has been going on, but now we caught them at it. Okay,
that was an extraordinary hearing.
That was beyond extraordinary. What was off the page was the temporary commissioner of DHS is sitting there, and somebody asked her, "What are you going to do?" And she said, "We're referring it to HR." Really? A bunch of your people just created fraudulent documents and backdated them to give to our auditor, and you're referring it to HR? Why? To calculate their bonus for the year?
We actually asked a reporter at Channel 5 downstairs, asked her, Gandhi, is she interim now still, or is she the director of DHS?
Well, I don't know. Last time I looked, her title was temporary.
Temporary,
but
she's
people,
still,
but I
she's
don't
still
think
the commissioner either way.
She's the commissioner.
So they point blank asked her if anybody's being fired, and she said that she couldn't really comment because it's a personnel matter now.
Right.
So
okay. So,
but
when you look at this, you see this stuff on TV, and you have to ask yourself, where's the outrage? And this filing in the Federal Register is demonstrative of the outrage at the federal level.
I mean, essentially, it's the federal government saying to the state of Minnesota, your Medicaid program is so fraught with fraud that we're shutting you down, at least with the federal money, we're shutting you down, right? I mean, is that just in a nutshell? That's it.
Your Medicaid program is so fraught with fraud that we're withholding our half
$2 billion
of some of this money in 14 programs. But the big program, the prepaid medical assistance program,
Medicaid,
the Medicaid, the mother of all programs, they haven't even got to that one yet.
Right.
And that's where the huge fraud is.
So this could even get
bigger. This thing could snowball out of control, in an unbelievably short period of time. And many of us are optimistically hopeful that in fact will happen, because you've got to stop this nonsense in order to stop the bleeding of the money. And what we've got now, the new ingredient, the new wrinkle or twist on this thing that suddenly catches everybody's attention, is some of this stolen money going to fund terrorism?
Right.
Okay? Because
it's been the question. Nobody's been able to answer it other than...
Nobody's been able to answer, but the existence of that question alone has finally got everybody seriously looking at this, because before, it's just, what's a few billion stolen dollars among friends? You know, what does anybody care? You know, it's government, it's complicated, who cares? Yeah. Now suddenly, people care. It's an important question, it's an important issue, and certainly, you know, the feds aren't going to let it rest until they find out. So, you know, that's what we're in the middle of.
So, speaking of the feds, do you suppose that the reason the money was made available from the federal government by Congress, U.S. Congress, was the end goal just simply fraud? Or was the end goal pure and good with good intentions?
The intention of the federal government is always good intentions, the best of intentions. This whole notion of 1115 waivers was an idea that says, you know what? The old-fashioned way was, we'll give you half the cost of a program. You go ahead and run a program.
Yeah.
You show us the receipts.
Yeah.
We'll reimburse you for half the program. That's the old-fashioned way. Many years ago, somebody said, you know, that's cumbersome. Let's do it a new way. Let's experiment. Let's just have the government give the state money and trust them, because it's the state. I mean, how could they mess it up? You know, it's like the state government. Who would ever think that the state government could or would mess something up? Well, they have messed it up beyond human recognition.
With hindsight, that was bad. That was really bad.
But more importantly, there are many people who are suggesting that they messed it up on purpose.
Correct.
And that's the real issue that needs to be. Basically, the argument is, you couldn't mess this thing up this bad by accident. You know, this required planning and consultants.
Hey, David Schultz was on. You know David. He was on just before you. And he gave us a great line. Kenny wrote it down. This is what David Schultz had to tell us. What was it,
It's
Kenny?
a buyer's market for fraud.
in Minnesota. It's a buyer's market for fraud.
But don't worry, David. I wrote down something you said that I love. Babbling bullshit.
We've had a stellar day at the CRABBY coffee shop.
Seldom do we write down quotes.
Stellar day.
Yeah.
So what do you think? They have the hearings. Do you think the feds will stick to their guns? I'm asking you to speculate, obviously. I mean, do you think this is actually going to happen where they cut the $2 billion, or is it more political theater?
Well,
have you ever seen anything quite like this before?
No.
I
have never seen anything quite like this before. I have never seen, people write letters all the time.
Yeah.
I collect letters written by legislators to the federal government going, we, the undersigned, demand that you come in here and arrest the following people and hang them next Wednesday. Those things never produce a result. Here's a letter that ended up being published as a notice in the Federal Register going, we're doing this. Now, the other thing that's different is, normally, when the state of Minnesota says, we got a plan, here's what we're going to do, we're going to hire some consultants, I know a guy, and by the way, I've signed an executive order decreeing that all this stuff would stop.
And you think that'll be enough for the federal government?
No. It isn't enough because, A, we've already done this.
Yeah.
And B, in the past when we did this kind of stuff, it was enough. Okay? It was enough. We've done it. This thing published today specifically says, we saw that stuff you did, and it ain't good enough. In fact, it ain't even a reasonable start.
So you're saying this is actually a response to when Minnesota said we're working to fix this.
Yes.
And get a handle on it. And this is a response saying, yeah, you haven't done enough, so we're cutting it off. So you don't see this thing getting reversed anytime soon?
No, there's going to be a hearing. Walsh has asked for a hearing.
Right,
okay?
but do you think it'll get reversed at a hearing or an appeal?
If he provides a different plan, because they've already rejected this one.
Got it.
If he comes up with some new plan that might make some amount of sense, assuming it isn't just all fluff and empty promises, they might say, okay, we'll give you a chance. But what I would do if I was in their position is I would look at receivership. I would say, you know what? We're going to reverse roles. The state of Minnesota keeps talking. In fact, they're just quoted in the newspaper this morning. This is a partnership between the state and the feds, and the cruel, uncaring feds have decided to victimize the poor people who depend on these programs. That's their approach. Okay. I mean, I'm not Dr. Oz. Dr. Oz is a lot smarter than I am. If it was me, I would go, I'll tell you what, I'm going to call that bluff. You're right. This is a partnership. But I'm reversing the order. I, the federal government, am now the new managing partner. We're going to run this program, not you.
Right, got it.
You put up
Medicaid.
up half the money. We'll put up half the money. We're going to run it.
Interesting. I wish I should have thought to get Renee Cooper up here. She interviewed him at 7:30 this morning. I'd be curious to know what Dr. Oz had to say.
And the other thing is,
that.
with the Medicaid program itself, many of us believe the fraud numbers are much larger. We're talking greater than $20 billion. Okay?
I interviewed Joe Thompson when he did the famous $1 billion quote.
Yep.
And how many months? Just a few months later, it was 9.
Yes.
So
Okay. The numbers are staggering.
Yeah.
But the reason I bring this up is for Medicaid.
Yeah.
The solution for Medicaid is even simpler. You don't need to do this. All you need to do is pull the waiver. If you pull the waiver, the program goes back to running the way it was designed. The state puts up money, the feds reimburse money, the feds get to see receipts. It's impossible to steal. That model is called a fee-for-service model.
Yeah.
We still have that model in Minnesota. Minnesota is running a Medicaid fee-for-service program. It's still up and running. Why do we have it? Because about 20% of the Medicaid population are disabled people, high acuity people, high needs people, and the HMOs that we contract with used to be 4, it's now 3, maybe still 4, nobody knows. Those companies don't want these people, so we have to run a fee-for-service program because they don't want the expensive people. They just want the good risk. So we got a fee-for-service program. We got a supercomputer. It's up and running. If the federal government wanted to pull out 1115 waivers, somebody pulls a switch, and bingo, we're in business. No enrollees have disrupted. Everybody gets health care. In fact, better than they've ever gotten before because there's no limited networks. They can go wherever they want. Fee-for-service is a much better deal than the managed care system we got now, and all fraud across the board ceases instantly. All of this stuff on the part of the state is designed to distract attention from the Medicaid program, which is the big-ticket item.
Good stuff. As always, thanks for coming in.
My pleasure. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, thank you very much. Jay, let's take a really quick break and come back. I've got something secret to tell you.
Okay.
All right, we'll be right back.
Look forward to it.
Jay, if you would go back 35 years and tell the 25-year-old Kenny that he would care about this sort of babbling bullshit at the age of 60, I think that 25-year-old Kenny would have punched you right in the nose and ordered another shot of tequila.
Yeah, you would have throated. You would have throated me. Yeah,
wow, can you believe where we are in this state?
No, it's been extraordinary.
It's really been fascinating.
I can't think of any other word other fascinating, extraordinary. And like I said earlier at the top of the show, when we said to David as we was leaving, it literally is changing every day. There's something else. Like you said, feds suing the state, states suing the feds. Now we're pulling Medicaid money to $2 billion on top of. It's just been insane, Kenny. Insane.
Meanwhile, there's a wonderful lady in your part of the world in Wisconsin who still holds the world record for shooting the largest black bear in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And we've wanted to interview her for the last 2 weeks.
And they haven't had a chance.
Eventually, she's going to get sick of us and say no.
She's not going to cut my hair anymore.
Yeah, well.
Tell me to get the hell out. So she understands, and she will join us someday.
Yeah. But let's a special thanks for David for being available to us when we're worried about Tom Heffelfinger.
Yeah.
He still hasn't called back.
I'm going to keep trying to get a hold of him. That's just unusual. So.
And David Feinwachs was wonderful. I had no idea the conversation was going to go where it went.
Yeah, he's
he doesn't hold back. He's like you. He's full throttle.
He's full throttle. Well, imagine he and I teaming up on stories 12 years ago.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah.
I would get out of the car and walk. I'm not riding with you two.
And I don't blame you.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for listening to News from the Krabby Coffee Shop. We'll be back next week.
See ya.
At Arizona State University, we're bringing world-class education from our globally acclaimed faculty to you. Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Learn more at asuonline.asu.edu.